It's, something that is talked about quite a lot, where like writing and reading, we put so much emphasis on this is educational
Yes,
that it takes the
yeah.
fun out of it. It sucks all the joy out of it.
Yes,
It's not
yeah.
hard, it's actually fun. And guess what? There's no wrong way to write a story. Write it. There's no
Exactly.
wrong book to read. Just read. It's this.
Absolutely. There's no right or wrong. In this episode, we have Eric Huang. He wanted to study dinosaurs, but Fieldwork didn't live up to his Jurassic Park dreams, so he accepted a secretary job at Disney Publishing, kickstarting a publishing career spanning 3 continents. Today, Eric is an author, podcaster, and a lecturer at City University of London's Masters in Publishing programme. So, Eric, why did you become an author?
Why did I become an author? I I always told stories. When I was little, I grew up in the States, in New Jersey. I grew up in New Jersey. My sister and I, we always played make-believe. And they were always these sort of, the floor is lava, the car is a monster type things. And so, yeah, I always told stories, imagined stories. And even when, I studied paleontology at university. And so that's dinosaurs, like fossils and dinosaurs for people who might not know. And we were in the earth sciences department at the university, which included a lot of physicists. And the physicists used to always laugh at us because they're like, you find a rock and you're like, oh, this is probably a bone of a dinosaur. And he was just doing this and this. All you guys do is make up stories. And I was like, yeah, exactly. This is why I love paleontology. So I guess becoming an author was a natural thing, although it took me many decades to actually do that.
Yeah, that's really interesting in terms of your journey, and I think the studying of dinosaurs,
Yeah.
which I think, and actually, many children love dinosaurs. You normally see children with a dinosaur figure, books, etc. So that fascination and having that. Where you were saying one of your colleagues or somebody in the university mocking you in terms of telling stories, but it got me thinking as you was sharing this, Eric, that stories is everything that we do. And I know off camera before we started, we were talking about petrol, we were talking about
Yes.
dresses, we were talking about rewards. So
Yeah.
everybody, I always say, is a storyteller.
I mean, I think I think as animals, we sort of we organize our life and our world and what we want to do through narrative, right? What am I going to do later? What am I doing tonight? That's a story. I mean, it might not be the most exciting story, but it's a story, right?
And I think and one of the things that I always reflect on and share, the late great Benjamin Zephaniah, because he did so, I mean, he was a poet, was a storyteller, he was a musician and an actor as well. And when he's been interviewed and someone says to him, what do you do? And he always say, oh, what do? I do so many different things. And he said, well, actually, what am I doing today? And he used this term called a griot. So a griot is somebody that goes, it's a West African term, that goes from village to village, sharing stories and the news of the day. So I
Right.
believe we're all griots in some
Yeah.
shape or form, right?
Yeah. Whether it's gossip or what mom had
That's
for dinner,
right.
it's
Yeah,
all that, right?
exactly. And I think from a cultural perspective, there's the stories that were shared to me from my parents and grandparents. They weren't written down stories like an author. They were the oral stories that were shared. And that's why that's handed down to us, this generation, and then we share back to the next generation in terms of those oral stories.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's very much so. And a lot of what I write is inspired by the stories my dad told me and my sister when we were little at bedtime. And a lot of them are, Chinese and East Asian legends that his parents told him, their parents told them. So it's just kind of this passing down of, I guess, like a collective memory in some way, which are stories.
Exactly, absolutely. And then hooking in that cultural narrative, which I feel is so important around identity And because I know, as being a fantastic author, Eric, you also too work in a university, and I think that's quite useful to unpick that because I think it's a fascinating story.
Yeah, I think lecturing. So I lecture on a publishing master's program at City University, and I think the lecturing is storytelling too. I mean, one of the modules I teach is called Business and Marketing and Publishing, but I'd like to think. I mean, I think it's such an exciting topic because it's a narrative of how retail has worked, how the book business has come up and down, how it's changed, how technology, politics change. How publishers make books, how we sell books, how people market books, and but it's all a story, and I think it's interesting to the students, and I think it sinks in better. It's easier to remember when there's a story because there are emotional highs and lows in telling this tale of publishing and where it's going and where it's come from.
Exactly, and I think that's a really good point to add there, that you're lecturing in the business and marketing side of publishing, because one of the things that I share with emerging authors is to really have an understanding of that side of it, in terms of contracts, etc.
Mm.
And that's not really discussed, I don't think, in terms of the business side of it and why it is important. So what do you share with your students in terms, because you're probably the first author that's come in that actually lectures on
Right.
this point, because it's so important
Mm.
to existing and emerging authors.
Right, and also I think I have an interesting perspective, which some authors do, in that I used to work in publishing as well. So I was a children's publisher at Penguin, and now I'm an author, and so seeing things from both sides, and then also seeing the perspective from the students, most of whom are in their early 20s, so several generations beneath me, and seeing how they how they sort of find out about books. I think the thing, but above all, I think it's about being open.
Mm.
Like you might have a knee-jerk reaction about being scared of something or annoyed by something. Oh, I don't want to read my royalty statement. Oh, AI is really scary. And whilst I'm not saying those feelings are wrong, rather than just go la 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 la, learn about it. Because if you're afraid of it, if you don't know it, it's sort of know your enemy. Learn about it so that you can be part of the conversation or make educated decisions that I'm not going to do this or I am going to do this. Yeah. When I started in publishing, it was when ebooks were new, mobile phones were new. And it's, very similar conversations people are having now with AI. I mean, I do think AI, there's differences, obviously, but it also reminds me of when I had my first summer internship at a mortgage banking company so I and two other guys, we were editing their magazine. So anyone who had a mortgage with them would receive a physical magazine in the post, as you did in the day. And we were editing the magazine. And Microsoft Word was new. Like desktops had been rolled out across the office maybe like a year or two ago. And so we had this big debate. Are you going to use spell check? Because if you're going to use spell check, you're not a real editor. And you know what? Now that there's spell check, editors, there's going to be no more. And now the idea of like disabling spell check, it's like, what? Why? It's a tool. And I'm not saying AI is as simple as that, but I think the same conversations happen over and over again. And I see that in the students. I think as an author too, is just ask questions. Don't feel you're being stupid or annoying because it's their job, whether it's your agent, your editor, your publisher, it's their job to tell you, to explain. Always ask, and don't be afraid. If there's anything you don't understand or slightly feel a friction about, learn about it, like get to know it better. Because I think it dispels the scariness of it.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it is, from even how many years ago, probably about 8, 10 years ago, the first contract that I got, and at that particular time, I didn't have an agent. So there was many learning curves for me, big learning curves. And you're right, if you don't, I think, understand, because I'm dyslexic, there's always somebody who is willing to help you. Some of us, as children authors now, we connect on social media, we
Yes,
ask
there's
questions.
different communities you can go to.
Absolutely, definitely. And it is really important that you understand the business side of it, the T's and C's, the terms and conditions in your contract,
Mm,
etc. And where you was talking there about spell check, I love spell check.
Yes.
Being dyslexic.
Yes, of
It
course.
has
Yeah.
saved me.
Yeah.
It has saved me big time.
Mm.
And I feel, and I had this conversation yesterday because it was play day around screens. And I
Ah, yes.
said,
Okay.
actually, it's about educating children rather than banning
Yeah.
screen time per se. And my son is autistic, so he uses screens as a form of communication.
Mm. Mm.
So I feel that, again, leaning back into what you was just saying about I feel it's a learning
Yes.
opportunity, and we cannot say no to AI because it's going to happen.
Yeah.
And this is probably the first interview that I've talked about AI. So
Right.
thank you, Eric, for that.
The AI episode.
Yes, exactly, absolutely. And I think that we have to have sensible conversations about how we're going to use AI
Mhm.
in the publishing industry. It's super important. And if we look back to how publishing was 30 years ago, I'm quite old. There's so many jobs now that are null and void because of technology.
Mm.
And that is going to
Yep.
happen with AI. And I think, do you agree with that? What are you sharing with your
Yeah, I
students?
think,
Similar?
yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I think, jobs will definitely be lost. There will be new jobs as well, but whether they, replace the jobs that are lost is a big question. I think the one message that I try to get across to my students about AI is that it's one thing to say, I hate AI and blame AI. AI is a thing. If there's someone to blame, it's the people using the technology to, to destroy copyright, to do things that hurt creators. And so I think it's actually very smart of them to make AI the enemy, because AI is not doing anything. Talk about the people who are passing laws or aren't defending copyright,
Absolutely.
rather than blaming this thing that is everything and nothing. So, but I think part of that is about being educated about it. You realize this tool isn't doing anything. It's these people doing these things. And that this is what we should pay attention to, these companies and the rules that allow them to do this, rather than, ooh, AI, like, that's a distraction. And it's a powerful distraction that I think doesn't serve us.
Exactly. And I think it's also to batten it back to the government around legislation,
Mm.
because you're right. I mean, I would be absolutely mortified, likewise, any creative, if your work was used
Illegally.
illegally without
Mm.
your permission, because it's my work is me,
Yeah.
so if that was used inappropriately. But it's about saying, actually, what is illegal, and also too for the youngsters, because many youngsters now, in terms of when I go into schools, colleges, etc., and they're sharing with me about the use of AI, it's about educating the next how to use it appropriately. That comes
Mm.
back to my point on screens for young children.
Mm.
Don't say that it's the enemy, actually use it as a point of education.
Yeah.
What we should be using AI for appropriately
Because it's a
to
great
assist you.
tool. It's a great
Absolutely. And
tool.
I think, especially myself with a learning disability, being
Yeah.
dyslexic,
Yeah.
it's going to probably help me no end within using it legally, AI, and not, plagiarizing somebody else's work, because that's when I think the big issue is.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
Yes, yeah. So that's AI done and dusted.
Yeah. We've solved the world's problems.
Exactly, absolutely, in a 5-minute
Yes.
conversation.
Done.
So going back to yesteryear, Eric, what was your favorite book as a child?
My favorite book I read, it was a fantasy series called, is it The Chronicles of Xanth? It was
Okay.
by an author named Piers Anthony. He's American, and I know his books still aren't in the UK. I remember when I was at Penguin, there was a moment I was like, I'm going to be the one to bring him to the UK, but it didn't happen. And it was basically this magical world, which was Florida. It was Florida, but Florida, we as sort of like mundanes, so humans without magic, we just saw it as Florida, but it was actually the magical land of Xanth. And every human born there had a magical power that was latent until around puberty. And then the land was full of magical creatures, but all based on puns. So things like, I'm trying to remember, like, sort of like flying pig, So it was all based on puns, but also like unicorns and centaurs and dragons and things like that. But I loved it because, and I've always loved fantasy. I mean, part of my love for dinosaurs is that they're real dragons. And so I was sort of lured into paleontology because I loved fantasy and science fiction. So that was my favorite book series when I was little.
Yeah, and I wanted to come back to you saying, which I think was new to me in terms of working in publishing with Penguin.
Mm.
So, what was that switch in terms of working in publishing into lecturing? Was that a natural progression, or was something that you wanted to do?
No, it was totally accidental. The pandemic had a lot to do with that, which was like this period of and becoming an author, like this a massive change, both horrible and wonderful, actually, for me at least. And I think, I loved working at Penguin, and I think it was just that I think for so long, I'd worked in publishing for about 20 years, and for so long I was helping other people make their stories, helping other people get their stories published. And then at some point, I was just like, I have stories. I
Yeah.
want to make my own stories. And I think the pandemic sort of made that crystal clear to me. And I had left Penguin a while back, but I was doing consulting work for publishers or kind of children's media companies around storytelling, character, business development stuff. And I was just sort of like, I'm done with that. And I started writing. Um, and then at the same time, I had a bunch of savings that was like, okay, I'm gonna like focus on the writing. But then of course the savings ran out faster than I thought it would because I didn't
Always.
change my habits, right? I was still like, let's order pizza, always. And Patrick Brindle, who's the head of the department, had rung me and been like, and I had been a guest lecturer at City several times, like throughout the years. And there was all of a sudden this vacancy for a visiting lecturer, so a part-time position for someone to teach one module, which was it's now called international markets. So about how do publishers sell overseas, whether it's through rights,
Wow.
co-editions, export, company transfers, et cetera, or websites that are sort of legal but not legally, selling editions across borders. And he was like, "Would you come teach this?" And I was like, "I didn't work in rights." He's like, "I think you'd be great. Just
Wow.
come,
Give
I'll
it a
help you."
go.
Yeah, and I gave it a go, and I just loved it. Like it was so much fun, and I think it helped me sort of like, I guess really look back at my career and my experience and put it into a narrative, like into an order that
Mm.
made sense to me. And there's a thing I do in this module, and I still teach it, where on the first day, I break up the students into random groups. So there's about 5 groups, and I say to all of them, "You're now each group is a publishing house, but you're not based in the UK. You're based in another country, and I want you to tell me by the end. We get 15 minutes. Where are you based? Where you're headquartered?" And what type of books you publish. And so for the rest of the term, there's lots of, sort of international kind of case studies, and I make them answer or address these questions, whether it's AI, censorship, various topics that are affecting publishing globally from the perspective of their publisher. So if you're, say, a comic publisher in Korea, you're going to answer that differently than if you're, say, a romantasy publisher in France, or or an education publisher in India.
Mm.
So it's a way to get them to understand globally how things are different. But it's all just about make believe. Like we're making up a story and we're just like playing. Yeah. So I,
Yeah.
I I love it. I really love
Sounds
teaching.
super interesting. That would be something on one of my author's visits. I might actually adopt that, actually, Eric.
Take it. It's yours.
With children in the latter years of primary school, early years, secondary
Mm.
school. I think that's a great way of getting them, students to understand how publishing works from a global level in terms, and also too, because you've had many different roles, you've got many stories to share as a lecturer in publishing, authors that you've met,
Yeah.
all those different components. It's fascinating, and that's where, because I've been a lecturer many years
Yes.
ago, that you're able to draw in on that and to say, oh, I remember when this author came in, or I
Yeah.
remember this
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
story, and
Yeah.
the reason why this didn't get published, and it went to another publishing house, and we should have taken it, but
Always.
Yes, I think that's an interesting point in your experience being a publisher and the many different stories that you can share,
Yeah.
equally to the books that got away, the one that got away. And I remember Mallory Blackman, her story, when she shares that she got so many no's and
Mm,
eventually she got a yes. And that's one of the things that I share with emerging authors, that you will get no's, but actually
mm.
there may be a publishing house that sees something in that book and it becomes a global bestseller.
Yeah, and I think also, if an author hasn't worked in the industry, they don't know, you don't know that not every publisher can do well with this book. Every publisher has a specialty and, for better or for worse, something that the buyer expects from them or from that imprint. And if there's something weird or different, it just doesn't work. And also, it's just depending on the editor who brings it to acquisition, it'll be a yes, let's do it, or a no. It's so arbitrary and it's something out of your control. And I mean, I found it difficult too, because even though, I worked in publishing and I was sending manuscripts to my mates, but it was terrifying. And it was 2 years before anyone got back to me saying yes. And then before that was no, 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 no. And some people have never come back to me. And of course, in the back of my head, I'm like, they hate me now. They're not even friends of mine anymore. But of course, it's like, it's not about you. They probably didn't even see it, or they did, but you don't know.
And don't take it personally, because I've had a lot of no's as well, because actually it's quite subjective, isn't
It's
it?
very subjective,
And
yeah.
it's down to, I think, taste, because there may be somebody in that acquisitions meeting that can see it and say, no, I get it. And they champion you to say, well, actually, this is what this book is
Yeah.
actually
And
saying.
and it can be really arbitrary because, my experience working in publishing, not just at Penguin, but other companies, the day of the acquisitions, what's the marketing director's mood? What's the sales director's mood? What's your boss, the publishing director's mood? Is this the right day to bring it up? Or do you have to bring it up because everyone else is trying to get it too? And so, if you had the perfect time to do it as an editor, as a commissioning editor, you could probably get like nearly 100% success rate. But sometimes, like, if we don't make an offer, it's going somewhere else. Everyone's in a terrible mood today. It's raining. I just have to bring it up, and it's going to be a no.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, there's the quality. There's about liking it, but also it's just the day.
Exactly.
Like,
And
how many coffees did everyone in this room have? Are they ready for this? No, but seriously, it can be so arbitrary, and it's so hard not to, but don't take it personally. Just keep going.
And that's
Keep
great
going.
advice, Eric, I think, to share with emerging authors and especially young people who are thinking about writing. Is I always say, and some people say, well, I got if I'm at an event, I pitched X, Y, and Z publishing house, Laura. They said no. And I just said, keep on going. Keep on going. And sometimes yourself, and I know this, I've written something and I open it up a year later on my laptop and I think, oh, I need to edit this. Oh,
Yeah, yeah. It's like,
I
ooh,
can see.
I never read this email, you know?
Exactly. And just, keep on going. Keep on going. Keep on going.
Yeah, yes.
Because your book will end up, even if it takes 5 years, somebody will see. And it could be, they've already got a book of a similar theme. It could be a financial issue. It could be there's enough books they've got coming out in the next 2 years. But I just say keep on going, and it will
Absolutely.
get somewhere.
Yeah,
Think of
absolutely.
Mallory Blackman and all the other, authors. And also, too, you must have known Lou Stowell at
Yeah, yeah.
Penguin. Yes,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
she's been in. She was my first editor.
Yes, I saw the episode. Louis and I were neighbors as well, so we
Oh,
know each other
right.
very
Yeah,
well.
that's
Yeah,
right. Correct.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I think, everything, because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be probably sitting here doing this and all my other books. Yes, I had Jojo and Gran Gran before that, but yeah, she really believed in what I was trying to get across,
Yeah.
and other, editors that I've worked with as well. I've been very lucky, I suppose, that I think people get my quirky brain the way that I. Yeah, so which leads us on to this beautiful book, which I love the covers, Guardians of the New Moon, the Year of the Ox. And I
Yes.
absolutely love the illustrations on the front cover, and it's illustrated
By
by
Fung, who lives in Vietnam.
wow.
Yeah, super talented illustrator. Yeah, it's a very, very fun book to write. It's the third in a series, Guardians of the New Moon. Again, inspired by the East Asian Chinese legends my dad told me and my sister when we were little. Yeah, I particularly like this one because I think the main theme is about challenging stereotypes. Because the main character, the ox, he's like this big, strong ox, and everyone expects him to be a warrior. But what he really wants to do is to dance, is to be a dancer. And so this is about the adventure where Ming and Meow, the protagonists here, kind of take him on this quest to kind of figure out his authentic self, who he is, and to be true to himself.
Now, I think it's a great book to have because I've been into some schools and I've seen some of these copies in the library
Good, good,
and in the
good.
classroom, and it's always great when I go in and see. And I think it's a page turner for children. Being able to read a book like this, either taking it out from the library, etc. But anything significant that you also too want to home in on?
I suppose, yeah, like I said, I've always been, I love fantasy, science fiction, sort of speculative fiction. And I just think, growing up Chinese American, I was born in the States, my parents are originally from China, and, being exposed to another tradition full of magical creatures, like chaotic gods and goddesses, magical places, and different magical rules that are just as cool as Thor or Zeus or Aphrodite, but hardly anyone knows about. And so for me, yes, it was about, you know, highlighting some East Asian characters and themes, but more just that if I was a kid and I didn't know about these stories and these magical creatures, like, my mind would have been blown because I love magical creatures so much. But just to realize, and there's this other whole world that you don't know, plus worlds in Africa, worlds in South America, worlds in South Asia, everywhere. I mean, we've just scratched the surface. Like, sure, Egyptian, Greek, Roman, Norse, they're great. But guess what? There are like hundreds of others just as cool. And I think this was one of the reasons why I wanted to create the series.
And I think you just hit the nail on the head there about the importance again around bringing in that culture, the worldly stories that, I'm quite old, that were never shared with us, that I didn't know about growing up. So this book is as much as an education for me as an
Of
adult,
course, yeah.
and leaning in and learning about different traditions, etc. And I feel that's very important for all children to know that it's not just generic Western
Yeah.
tales, that actually we've got these worldly tales that it's important for children to be informed about.
Yeah, and I just think that they're just fun, and I think kids will love it because they're weird and they're wonderful, just like all the stuff kids like.
Exactly, absolutely. So in this book, if you had to choose a page, which was your favorite page?
Or favorite scene?
Yes, favorite scene.
I think, I think maybe it's the scene. I mean, spoiler alert, but
Spoiler alert.
the dad does in the end understand that, I should just let my son do what he wants to do, be who he is, because I want him to be happy. And there's a scene where they have like that conversation. And that was yeah, that's probably my favorite scene.
Yeah.
And it's kind of semi-autobiographical.
I was going to say that actually.
Yeah,
The way that your
semi-autobiographical.
face went,
Yeah.
it was a sentimental moment. I felt that and I thought, yes, I bet you it's linking back.
Yeah, to sort of like me and my dad
Yes,
as well, and sort
yeah.
of him understanding who I am and not wanting to be who he wanted me to be.
Wow,
I think,
powerful,
part of the reason I studied paleontology too, not just because I love dinosaurs, but, my dad being very traditional was like, if you're going to university and you want us to pay, you can be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. The rest, you may as well just, not go. I'm like, great. And so I was like, I want to study paleontology. And he's like, is that in the biology department? I'm like, yep. So it's pre-med? Yes, it's pre-med. And so he sort of paid for it.
Yeah.
And so
You
paleontology was
massaged the truth there a little
exactly.
bit.
It is in the biology department. I mean, overall biology.
Yes, yeah. And I think one of the things, just reflection on what you just said there, is that when I write, whether or not it's a fiction book, non-fiction book, or in children's TV, a lot of it subconsciously comes through. It's like my therapy.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And you
Yeah.
write and you think, oh my goodness me, where did that come from? You know, you need a psychologist to unpick this.
Yeah.
But I think with most writers, we do write, whether or not it's something that is fictitious, actually, there is that element of truth subconsciously that's
Yeah.
coming
Oh,
through.
it's part of this lived experience, right?
Totally.
And I think, for in this book in particular, like, Xiao this character, he's sort of me. Whereas these two main characters, Meow, who's this grumpy cat,
I
is
love the
is
cat.
basically my boyfriend, Brian. He's
Wow.
gonna hate this, but he's kind of just grumpy all the time.
Oh,
And
wow.
then Ming is my sister, whose Chinese name is actually Ming as well. And Ming means bright.
Yes.
So like characters, and so when I do workshops with kids, and a lot of times teachers are like, tell us about your writing process. And they make it sound really complicated. It's like, nah, I just think about
Yes.
people I know.
Yeah.
And and the temple where Meow lives, it's kind of my high school. It's sort of, I think about the different places in my high school, and you just pull it from everything you know. It could be the bus stop,
Exactly.
this mug.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not rocket science. Just pull it from wherever it comes.
And I think a lot of people who are, curious about the writing process, Eric, they're quite fascinated and surprised when you do share the writing process, where you get your ideas from characters. But does your boyfriend know about that, about the cat?
He does now.
He does now, exactly.
He might have suspected it.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think everything that I do is, Jojo and Gran Gran, it's based on my grandmother, Myra and Marley, the latest book in the series, that's my childhood adventure
But
playground.
fictionalized, right?
Exactly,
Sort
you
of
do.
grander somehow, or
Yes.
different flavors and colors of it. But that underlying thread is that experience, isn't it?
Exactly, and I probably like yourself, if you're doing writing workshops with children, I always just come from it, just write about what as a starting point, and when I see there's a child over somewhere in the room that's struggling, I go over to them and have a quiet chat.
Yeah.
And then they have this light bulb moment on storytelling.
Because it could be quite, I think, confronting. It's something that is talked about quite a lot, where like writing and reading, we put so much emphasis on this is educational.
Yes.
That it takes the fun out of it. It sucks all the joy out of it.
Yes.
It's not hard. It's actually fun. And guess what? There's no wrong way to write a story. Write it. There's no wrong book to read. Just read.
Absolutely. There's no right or wrong. I was looking at a piece of art yesterday, like sometimes when you're on the socials and something comes up, and it was this artwork, and it was just the most amazing non-traditional artwork, and it got me thinking again about books, that actually there's no right or wrong way. And there was an author, the name escapes me, they were talking about their book. I don't even think it was a children's book, it was an adult's book, and it was the way that it was written, because they were from London, Cockney, it was written that way. So naturally,
like in dialect.
Yeah, like a dialect.
Okay.
And he just said that, the editors obviously wanted to correct it, but he said, no, please, can you leave it? Because this is who I am, this is my story. And I think that's, coming back to your point, there's no right or wrong way,
And I think we underestimate young people. And that a lot of times, writing a story, it's like, oh, this word's a little big. It's like, that every 5-year-old knows how to say diplodocus or pterodactyl.
Yes.
They can learn. And if there's a word they don't understand, they can ask. And now they'll know.
Yes.
Isn't that all? And I get it, don't make it so the diction all the way through is sort of like, like it's a contract or something and indecipherable. But I think sprinkling it through with something unfamiliar, isn't that fun? I like that when I was little.
Yeah.
And they'll get it, context, even though they'll look it up. Guess what? Not knowing that word, you can still follow along, right?
Yes, yeah. But you were saying there about children being storytellers. I remember Michael Rosen, him and I both did a keynote to head teachers a couple of years ago. And obviously, Michael being Michael, he was just stood on just telling stories
Yeah, of
and
course.
picking up one of his books and explaining the rationale behind it, and to the head teachers, again, around supporting children with writing. And I said, you know, when you get a child come to you for their behaviour, and and they've been brought to you, just say to them, to that child, just tell me your story. And I thought that's really powerful, because you're instigating that child to be a
Yeah,
storyteller,
yeah.
whether or not that child, rather than doing lines, I must not talk in class, I must not throw the ball.
Yeah, or write an essay about it,
Yeah,
was reinforcing writing as a punishment, you
exactly,
know? Like, ugh.
absolutely. So just sit down and have that child just tell you their story. And I just
Mm,
thought that's really powerful message to share with head teachers
mm,
in that
mm,
conference,
yeah.
you know? Yeah, amazing. So in terms of the Guardians of the New Moon, the Year of the Ox, what question would you ask yourself about this book?
I mean, the first thing that came to my head, I don't know if it's the question I actually want to answer, but it's just, like the plot, where did the plot of the story come from?
Okay, yeah, that is a great
Yeah,
question.
but do you want me, am I supposed to
Yes,
answer it?
yes,
Okay.
yeah.
I guess it is sort of about, I mean, it's autobiographical in the way that it's about this, this young ox, a child essentially, right, who wants to be something that, or no, he is something that people don't want him to be. And so it's semi-autobiographical in terms of me being young, thinking I might be gay, and it's sort of tied loosely to like my coming out as well.
Mm,
Um, yeah, I think that was the inspiration behind the plot and how this character develops from, yeah, thinking I need to just fit in at all costs to the end. It's
mm.
like, well, no, this is me. And it's actually much better to be me.
And I think that's a really good message to share with children and young people about being honest,
Yeah, true to
true
yourself.
to
Not,
yourself.
Not that you have to dance or come out or anything, but
Yes, that's
whatever it
right.
is you want to do,
Mm,
do it.
exactly. Simon James Green, the Year of Pride and Joy, I interviewed him a few months ago,
Mm,
and he was saying something similar to you about the importance of representation
yeah.
and children having that understanding and being comfortable and not being able to hide who they are. And I think books is a fantastic vehicle for children to understand who they are and to say, this is me, actually, and empowering a child
Mm,
to have that voice to share their story, you
mm,
know?
mm, mm. Absolutely. And I think stories of all kinds are great for that. But what's special about books is that, I mean, there's illustrations in this, but it requires you to imagine more. So you can make it more personal. It's sort of, like, I don't know, I remember the first time I read, I don't know, like The Hunger Games. My idea of what all the characters look like as soon as the movie was out, gone. All I picture now are the actors, and I wish that I would have drawn them or described them. Like to say, oh, my vision of Katniss is that she looks like, Jennifer from year 12. But I didn't. And so I don't remember
Mm,
anymore, because as soon as we have that movie image, how
mm,
we imagine the characters, what anything looked like, gone. And
mm.
so what's so powerful about books is that it's this one story, but everyone has a different version of it. And you can do that with film, games as well, but more so with books, because, my Katniss is not your Katniss, is not anyone's Katniss, until Jennifer Lawrence, who's a great Katniss, but she wasn't my original, and she killed my original one because I don't remember what she looks like now.
Yes, yeah. So an imagination is a thing, because I'm a dreamer
Yeah.
myself. I think it's because I'm dyslexic. And I think the power of books for me, and a lot of people say, but you're dyslexic, you're a writer, you love books. And I said, yeah, because books isn't a thing. Reading is something that doesn't impact me being dyslexic. There's so many other areas.
And it's personal.
That's right,
Yeah. You
absolutely,
can do it at
Eric.
your own pace when you want to.
Exactly,
It's not
absolutely.
performative either.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, which I think leads me quite nicely on to my next question in terms of what do you want children to take away from reading this book? You've given so many beautiful nuggets already.
I think about just being yourself. I think this book in
Mm,
particular, Year of the Ox, is about embracing your authentic self, not being afraid to be you. You be you. And not to say that it's easy. Yeah, but hopefully that it gives them some hope or confidence, a boost of confidence.
I think that's just a powerful statement to finish off on, Eric. Thank you, because I think for many children, to give them hope and to be you. And I think coming back to your point, and sometimes it can be very difficult to be you in many different situations. And as authors, we recognize that. We see you, we feel you, we
Yes.
understand
Yes.
everything, and that's why we write.
Yeah.
And that's just fantastic, Eric, to finish off on. So it leads me to say, please read this amazing book, because I think it's fantastic. You can get it from your library. I always have to give a shout out to libraries.
Absolutely.
If you have one near you, please visit your local library and keep on reading and reading and reading. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you very much.
This podcast was woven in partnership with our friends at Tapestry, the childhood education platform. They have kindly devised the educational resources for each podcast interview. Tapestry helps you celebrate children's learning, improve communication with families, and streamline your admin with powerful booking, invoicing, and management tools, giving you more time for what matters, the children and you. Visit tapestry.info to find out more. This podcast series was recorded at the Quick Brown Fox Video Production Studios in Wandsworth Town, London, with top-notch equipment and a knowledgeable team who are always happy to help. Recording our podcast has been a breeze.